Robbie Williams Rewind.
Welcome to Robbie Williams Rewind. We are the champions. I'm Matt.
And I'm Lucy.
And along with help from special guests, we take you on an in-depth rewind through the solo career of multi-award winning singer, songwriter and entertainer Robbie Williams.
We've got yet another amazing Better Man interview for you today, this time with the man who provided a lot of the vocals for Robbie in the film, and he also appears on the official soundtrack. Here to tell us all about how and why he got the job and what it was like is Adam Tucker.
Hello, Adam.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, thanks.
Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem.
So, firstly, tell us a little bit about yourself and your musical background.
Well, a little bit about me. Well, I've kind of been singing since I can remember. I've always been performing. Anytime I was given the opportunity to perform as a youngster, I took it. I always made my family sit down and watch me perform, and then I had to make them clap at the end. But yeah, just kind of I've been a local musician. I actually live in Norfolk in a place called Kings Lynn. It's quite a part of the world, and yeah, I've kind of been performing for ever since I could. I got given a guitar, just kind of learned chords, and I'd play like around the local areas, and just kind of it's always been like I've always been known to be the guy who's like performing in the local area, with like if it's in like a theatre show, or it might be in a school talent show, or anywhere around the town. But yeah, so I've just kind of that's kind of my roots really. I went to when I sort of graduated from sixth form, I went to Leeds College of Music and studied singing there, or I studied music and singing was my major. And then ever since I've sort of left, I've sort of met a load of people and just kind of been a gigging musician really. So I've been on like BBC talent shows. I've played at gigs at Wembley. Singing with like people like Misha Paris, sung with Mark Almond. So I've done a lot of like backing vocals, but never been able to be like the main singer until now. Or partly I share it, but so it's just kind of been a bit of just kind of one of those typical journeys really. Always wanted to be the kind of center of attention as a youngster. And then just kind of with a career of like I wanted to be an actor for a while. And then realised I do like acting, but I really wanted to be a musician. Right. Just kind of went down that route really.
So tell us the story of how and when you secured the role of singing as Robbie.
Well, so I have a friend who I used to play in a band with for quite a few years, and he always used to say to me that I sounded like Robbie Williams when I sang. And he always just say at every gig, and we always used to play the two Robbie songs. You've probably guessed it was "Let Me Entertain You" and "Angels." We always used to finish with "Angels," and every time we finished with "Angels," he would say the same thing every time. I turn around, he'd go, "You sound like Robbie," and it would always be he would say it at every single gig, and people used to go, the band members would be like, "Yeah, you do sound like Robbie, you do sound like Robbie." And that was kind of just like an ongoing thing that we used to say for like years, but it was always just like reoccurring. Anyway, my friend Ed, who I was in a band with, he lives in North London. He lives next to a guy called Ben Francis, who runs a vocal contracting company called Dynamic Vocals. And at the time, they were just kind of having a conversation in the pub, and he said, "Oh, actually, funny enough, I've got this, like, I don't know if you knew anyone." It was just in passing. "I don't know if you know anyone who potentially sounds like Robbie Williams at all, because they're creating a biopic on him. And and they basically need someone who sounds similar to him to play like the younger parts, and maybe do a couple of like the sort of as obviously you've seen, like the narrative of the songs is quite like strong in parts, so obviously I need to kind of have a little bit of acting kind of like sort of experience." And he just said, "Well, actually, funny enough you say that, I've always played in a band with a guy who I said sounds like Robbie Williams." So Ben, he got in touch with me and we had a few conversations about it. And obviously, like at this moment in time, it's like February 2023. So obviously no one knows about it. Like that was obviously news to me that anything of this, obviously, I'm sure people like you would have known about it, but I had no idea. Like I've obviously been a massive Robbie fan, but to me, I was just kind of like engrossed in what I was doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, they kind of came to me and said, he's like, yeah, so explained what the idea of the film was and what the part they were looking for. And this is all post-production, so I think they'd finished completely filming. And yeah, I just had to send across a couple of recordings. I think I sent across originally I sent like, for some reason I sent like Feel, even though that's like obviously not sung by like an older Robbie. It's obviously sung by Carter, who's the child in it, and Steve. But yeah, it's like I kind of sent those recordings across, and then I mean, like it was, I didn't hear back for a while, and then suddenly I just kind of get this call through. He's like, "Oh, the producers, they want to meet you on Zoom. They want you to just kind of sing the songs, maybe have a chat with them. They might ask you to do it in different ways." And anyway, and yeah, like. From there on, it just kind of like snowballed a little bit, really. But this whole time, I'm like thinking, I don't think I just thought it was like a kind of joke that my friend would say that I sounded like Robbie Williams. Like they're gonna find me out soon, and that I don't sound like Robbie Williams sort of thing. And I never, when I was doing these recordings, like singing like Angels and Let Me Entertain You, I never like was doing like an impersonation. I was always just kind of like, just doing it in my own voice and the way I would sing it. So yeah, it was kind of like, it was really funny when they kind of came back to me and they were like, "Oh yeah, they're really interested." And then obviously had like an audition and that kind of, you kind of do like loads of different recordings. Like I recorded a few songs at home just for them to check and see like me in different styles of Robbie songs. And yeah, like in like May 2023, I got the part, and pretty much the day I got the part, I think I was in the studio like the next week. So it was quite a quick turnaround, really. Those things happen super quick though, I think, it's just how it is in that industry, I think. So, and the rest is history, I guess, as they say.
Amazing.
You were the right person in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I guess it's like just one of those things, like people say that's like who you were just in the right place at the right time. And, like it wasn't that I was ever like looking for a job in a film, or I was just kind of just a gigging musician who never had, obviously everyone has aspirations to kind of make it or, do something like noteworthy. But yeah, it kind of like at the start, I was like, I don't really know if I really want to do something like this. Like, I don't know if that's kind of me. Yeah. And then the more it kind of, I could see it kind of happening. I was like, oh, I really want to do this now. And like, obviously being a Robbie fan for years, I thought, I was like, oh my God, that it would be amazing, I think. And then just kind of, I think everyone in the cast has been quite similar. Like they've all been like Robbie fans or in some capacity. And like Jonno, for example, he's like went to see Robbie when he was younger, and I'd like grown up on Robbie. So I was kind of like, when they gave me the part as well, they were like, sent me a list of songs that I needed to learn. And I was like, good, I know them all. So it's fine. I think it was like literally 2 songs that I'd not sung before, or like not sung, but like that I knew. Yeah. So I just kind of, went in there, and obviously like it was more a case of kind of listening to a lot of Robbie Williams. A lot of Robbie Williams. I think my Spotify Wrapped last year, I was in like the 0.0 something percent of Robbie fans. So I am now, I'm now like the true Robbie fan as well. But I just listened to so much, like the songs that I had to record, I had on a playlist, and I used to like get on the tube and just be listening to them for, I don't think I actually listened to any other music for probably I'd say a good sort of 3 or 4 months, like whilst I was like doing the main bulk of recording. I just literally listened to Robbie Williams songs. So for me that was it was good fun.
We can empathize with that. We can empathize with that because when we've done all of his albums in this Rewind podcast, and so when we were researching and getting ready for each episode, we would be listening to them on repeat, so we can kind of feel the same there.
Did you discover new songs that you didn't know before? Or do you just listen to the ones you needed to learn?
So I didn't know Something Beautiful. That was one of the songs that I did. I wasn't like totally clued up on, and I was like, oh my god, this is like an amazing song. I was like, I absolutely love this. And obviously the style that they had done it in on the film obviously is completely different, and like the words feel totally different. I don't know, they feel like they mean something else. And that was the only song really, I think, was and Straighten Up and Fly Right, which is like that first audition bit that he does for Nigel Martin Smith. That was literally the first thing that we recorded in the studio as well. And I was like, that was the only song that I didn't really know. Other than that, I was just like away. It was like just it was like it was very easy in that respect, like knowing the songs, I think. Sometimes when you do like these sort of things, or you go into a film, you got to learn like a whole repertoire of music, or you do a musical, you have to learn loads of stuff. For me, I was just kind of like straight away just like, yep, sounds good, I know these songs. But it was funny when they were like sort of saying them to like my agent kind of came to me and said, oh yeah, they asked you to learn this. And I said, you do know that I do know all of those.
And you sung a lot of them, like you said, there was 2 that you always sung, but you've sung those live as well in gigs, in your own gigs, have you?
Yeah. So we always used to sing "Let Me Entertain You." That's always like the first song we play, as Robbie would as well. And then we always finish with "Angels" as Robbie would as well. So it's like 2 songs that you can't, like if you play in like a wedding band or like a party band of such. It's like I maybe rock DJ now, but like they're like the songs like people. If you don't hear those songs, you sort of feel a little bit disappointed.
I'd agree. I would agree.
It's become part of the fabric of our culture, hasn't it? It's just expected.
Well, I was speaking to my girlfriend. I was like, the other day, I was like, oh, actually thinking about it, like Angels particularly has been out since I was like 3 years old. So that's like, I've only known that song sort of thing, like pretty much have literally grown up. I obviously don't remember him writing it, but I've just known it. I remember singing it. We used to sing it at like the school disco when I was in year 6, like the Angels on at the end. And it's like a load of sort of 10-year-olds singing. I mean, the 10-year-olds now probably have no idea.
No.
But yeah, back then we used to love Angels.
Oh. So who did you tell first when you got the job?
Well, other than signing, obviously I had to sign an NDA as most people do, so I could only tell like immediate family and some good friends who would probably wonder where the hell I was for like the next 4 or 5 months.
Right.
But I literally told my girlfriend straight away. She was literally sitting opposite me when I was having the conversation on the phone with my agent. He's like, so and I was just thinking he's going to say, no, that it's not, you've not got it, sort of thing. And he was like, they want you to do it. And I was like, I think I didn't actually tell my girlfriend. I think she just saw in my face. And I was like, oh my God. And then like straight away, I was just like, obviously my parents were there as well and told those. But other than like immediate family and like friends, really, like people that I spend a lot of time with, like funny enough, like my auntie is like one of the biggest Robbie Williams fans, and I couldn't tell her.
No.
And like it was kind of like one of those things where I was like, oh wait, I'll wait to be able to tell her. And obviously she was like, she was like, oh, I think she cried, when I told her, because obviously she's like a huge Robbie fan. She's like, oh, I love Robbie so much, I love him. And like she was great. But yeah, like especially for like my parents, obviously, like I always like and like I've got like I know like a few of my friends are a little bit younger, and I'm like, it's kind of like Harry Styles. I always put it like, imagine like in like 30 years time your son pretends to be Harry Styles. It's kind of like the same thing. He was in a boy band, he left, and like they were like, oh yeah, I get that. So for my parents, I was like, obviously that was huge for them. Because they've obviously grown up, and obviously my auntie as well, like grown up as like big Robbie fans. And especially if you're British, I think it's funny because like I hear like Americans, they obviously some of them haven't heard of him before, and you're like, Oh my God, he's literally like he was always, you couldn't escape hearing about Robbie Williams, could you?
Exactly.
No.
No.
And you've mentioned it a little bit, but we're interested in understanding a bit more about why they needed somebody else to provide the vocals for Rob. So tell us a little bit more about that, because some people might not understand why that is.
Yeah. So actually, Robbie did an interview a couple of weeks ago, actually, and he was talking about like how like the timbre of your voice will change over time. As you get older, like your voice will deepen and get more husky. I mean, like how many gigs has that man played? Like, if anyone sung as much as he sung, your voice will change. Like just through like so your vocal cord is the size of is smaller than your small, like your nail on your small on your pinky finger.
Okay.
Wow.
So that is such a fragile like muscle that obviously it will like wear down. And obviously we've seen what Robbie Williams got up to in his spare time. So that's not people have seen that now, and obviously that all that stuff affects it over time. They're just getting like older, and the timbre of your voice just changes. So when I was obviously asked to provide vocals in the film, that was to kind of get the sort of youthful voice in there, if that makes sense. Because if you were listening to, let's say when he's 16 and he's singing Straighten Up and Fire Out of Nigel Miles Smith, and he sounds kind of husky, he sounds like the Robbie now, I think it would pull you out of the movie. He'd be like, oh, it's just like, obviously it's Robbie singing, but people would like that. But I think at the same time, it doesn't, he's not 16 now. And his voice has changed. So that's why they got me in. And obviously there are like parts of Robbie in the film, like especially like the big numbers, like Rock DJ, like big parts of Let Me Entertain You, and all those, like that is like Rob singing. But they just kind of got me in, especially like all these songs are remade, so people are like, oh, why couldn't you use like the original recordings? Well, the tempo's changed, the meaning of the song has changed. So for example, like Come Undone, like that's completely different. Like the words mean words don't mean something different, but they're used in a different context. And obviously when Jonno's doing a certain movement or whatever, I've obviously got to match that essentially. And they want to use my voice so it sounds youthful. And probably naturally I probably have a similar voice to Robbie. And obviously there was a lot of hours of rehearsing, practicing, recording, thousands of takes. I mean, like I can't tell you how many takes there were. It was an unreal amount of takes.
Wow.
But that's kind of in a nutshell why I'm in it, as well as obviously Robbie is in it as well. But it's just kind of, I think, it's funny because my job is to kind of be like camouflaged in, because if I've done my job correctly, people should just leave the cinema and go, oh, that was good. Robbie sounded really good in that sort of thing. You know what I mean? So people wouldn't know it's me. And that's the idea. And obviously when I, took the job, I obviously knew that was the case. And still people have kind of come to me and, especially on like my TikTok's gone a bit crazy now. And people are like coming to me and like, I never knew it was you. I thought it was just Robbie. And I think people are quite like, they're quite shocked, but they're quite happy about it, I guess. And I think, it's, and Robbie fans as well. Like I've had some amazing comments from like Robbie fans, and like, I've kept the essence of what Robbie Williams was. So I think they're quite happy about that, which is obviously what I got employed to do, essentially.
Oh, you absolutely have. I mean, goodness me, your voice is incredible, by the way. I mean, we've been listening to you online and some of your Instas. You've got the most incredible voice. And
thank you.
When you do sound like Rob, but I've heard you when you don't sound like Rob as well. So you know what I mean? And I think it makes a lot of sense that they didn't, because we have had some fans that said to us, oh, well, is it Rob all the way through? Actually, it makes a lot of sense that you were talking about acting earlier on. You were acting and singing because the narrative needed that. I mean, yeah, I mean, people that haven't seen the film, it will make a lot of sense if you do see the film what we're talking about, because some parts of it are completely slowed down. It pauses. I can understand why you had to do so many takes, because obviously when you see the film, it just looks completely integrated and right.
Yeah.
But to get it like that, I can imagine how long it took to get there. So amazing.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, like, you know, especially songs like Better Man at the start, you know, he's like barely singing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's points like that where obviously they needed someone like me to do that, but obviously have a similar voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually interesting because there's obviously some songs in there that there's no like pre-recording of. I think like Land of a Thousand Dances, Robbie's never recorded that. He plays it at a lot of the gigs.
Yes.
So stuff like that. And also one of the best ones was the Take That stuff. Obviously I Found Heaven is, you can hear the original recording of that, but like stuff like what's the
Relight My Fire.
Relight My Fire, yeah. So Relight My Fire is we had to actually get Robbie to sing that like just in his hotel room, or like a voice note, just so he could hear what he sounded like. And then I obviously took that, and then because there are no like pre-recordings of that, so obviously these recordings don't exist sometimes. But yeah, like I think that's a great way of sort of putting it as well. I think like just kind of but it kind of makes sense when you talk about it. I think initially people will probably go, oh, why did Robbie sing? And that makes total sense. That, you know, I remember when I saw the Bohemian Rhapsody, and that's pretty much exactly the same sort of thing, where Remy is acting, and there's a guy called Mark Markle who does all the singing, or a lot of the singing. And then when you're like, oh, I thought it was just Freddie, or why didn't they obviously just use archive Freddie? And then it makes total sense, because it's like different points where they're doing some acting kind of thing, or they're like, there's no tempo, there's no song, so they have to kind of use someone else who sounds similar to him. So
sorry.
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say that someone last week actually sent me something they found on YouTube, and I don't know whether it's real, but it's a demo of Robbie singing Relight My Fire. From the 90s. It's bad quality, so it's possible that it is genuine. I don't know where it came from, but I thought that was interesting because I'd never heard that before.
No. Well, yeah, we wouldn't have done, would we? Because he didn't sing the vocals on that in the end.
Not in the end, no.
As you saw in the film, it's like, you have to sing this, but you can't sing it well. You have to sing it like you're going out of time.
Right, yeah, that must have been hard.
Yeah, that's actually really difficult. I think a lot of people don't realise there's like singers you get taught and it's drilled into to like sing on the beat, or like sing in key or something like that. And I have like, I don't have perfect pitch, but I have like quite good relative pitch. So, and if it sounds out, it's really hard for me. So that was actually quite a difficult part of the film, actually, to just kind of sing, sing out of time.
Yeah.
But it makes total sense when you see it. And then obviously like he sees the version of himself as well. So you have to kind of integrate all that. It's so much to like think about when you're singing as well.
Yeah. We play a little game now because we've seen the film quite a few times, and we're sort of looking at each other. Is that Rob or is that Adam? It's a very, very difficult game to play because actually it's very difficult to tell. And that's a compliment to you because your voice is so incredibly good. And obviously we've known Rob for past 25 years, well, more. So yeah, it really works in the film. Absolutely does.
Yeah, and it doesn't like pull you out at all. Like I know when it switches, and I can tell when it switches. There might be, there's like a song in it, and I don't. It's like I don't want to reveal too much. I feel like people go see it, but like if there's songs where like he starts singing and then I finish the song, and you're like, not at one point do you think there's like a big like dong, and it goes to me. Which is obviously great, and obviously it's the work of the amazing musical department. Like they are incredible, and obviously a lot of those worked on like songs, films like Greatest Showman, for example. Like it's a lot of the Greatest Showman team involved as well.
Wow, yeah.
And they've obviously done like loads and loads of work. I mean, they are gladiators I feel sorry for them because the amount of takes we used to give them, especially like the lady who used to do kind of like vocal editing. That was a job. She would kind of like edit all my or everyone's vocals, but like she would obviously a lot of it she was editing mine, and she's like hundreds and hundreds of takes, like of the same word, like it. But that's just how it is. Like that's how we got to the point where it was so seamless. I had to just like, you had to close your eyes and then be like, does that sound like Robbie? And then if it did, and it didn't pull you out, then that was great. And I remember like Michael Gracie, the first time I met Michael Gracie, and he was like, if I close my eyes, it just sounds like Robbie. And I'm like, good, because that's what we wanted. It's I mean, like their work is just unbelievable, what the music department do.
Definitely.
And I actually work closely with a guy called Owen Mallon, and Owen's like a vocal, he was my sort of like vocal coach, but like the vocal supervisor in the film, and he like produced a lot of my vocals on the film. And I mean, we were joined at the hip pretty much. Like we would listen to loads of Robbie together. I'd sing to him, he'd be like, oh, you got to change this and this, and then we'd like go into the studio, and it'd be like I'd sing a bit, and he'd be like, all right, Adam, can you just do, and like this, I've got so many recordings on my phone of me going like, it looks insane what we're doing. Like it's like, just like making some really weird faces, trying to change like the shape of my mouth to match Robbie's, and the tone, and like it was just like me and him were like, I always say like he's like the puppet master, and my voice was just a puppet. He'd just like tell me what to do, and I'd be like, yep, sure, I'll sing that bit. And there was a lot of takes.
I'm sure most people don't even understand half the technical challenge that actually you had there. Obviously you're an accomplished musician, but actually that sounded very technical what you had to do to get that right.
Yeah, and like like you said earlier, like when I sing as myself, I probably have a similar tone, but I don't pronounce the words the same. So that was a lot of like pronunciation kind of work, and a lot of like, it's just particular things that I know that Rob does now that I've kind of learned. Obviously, the hours we spent, obviously I've learned what they are, but you just kind of, it's just intricate things, like, things that you probably wouldn't even think about when you're watching the film. You're like, like some bits, I'm like, I feel like I've got a bit of PTSD because how many times we recorded them. But just, I think it was She's the One, I think we recorded, and I think I was about 400 takes in when Michael Gracie walked in. I thought, oh, he's going to think he's hired the wrong person, doing I'm like 400 takes in of doing some one song. But that's just the way it is now, I think, especially if you want people to not feel like they've kind of, they want to be listening to Robbie Williams. Obviously it's his movie, they want to be listening to him, so you don't want to be like, oh, who's that singing?
I'm sure Michael was fine with it, because talking to the actors, they did quite a lot of takes of scenes, so I think Michael is a perfectionist, as we know, so to get the result But I spoke to Fraser for a bit, just saying like how he takes he done that sort of stuff, and you're like, yep, I know how it feels. Luckily I don't have to be like switched, like obviously I have to be switched on, but like those guys are being filmed as well, and like they've got loads of people around them, whereas like I'm just in the studio by myself. Like I pretty much like pulled up a chair at one point, and we were like just sitting there like going and going and going. Like obviously I could relax, I could wear like my joggers if I wanted to, whereas those guys are on set doing like hours and hours of work, just kind of like standing around doing it again. And it's obviously very physical, whereas my job was quite easy compared to that, so I just got to sing the lines over and over again while sitting on a stool.
And I saw on one of your Instagram videos that you had a dial which said Robbie that you could turn up or down. How did that work?
My Robbie dial. So basically, like you get given this kind of mixer that the engineer will send you different like things that you want. So like I'd have like the click, I'd have like my vocals so I could hear myself, I'd have like the track, and then I'd have Robbie's vocals. So I would turn up, like if we had a reference for the track, I would turn Robbie up and listen. Like we'd be like, oh, just listen to that one bit, and you'd turn it up, and then you'd be like listening. And a lot of it I actually sung along with Robbie, like, just actually like mimicking his voice, and like then I could kind of like get into the same kind of tone as he was using. Probably sounds like I'm talking crazy to some people. They're like, what are you talking about? But yeah, it was just like basically so I could like hear bits of him, and then I could take it out when I needed to, and like, you know, which was obviously super handy. And, you know, we had his vocals as a reference point for all of the film, obviously, so we could kind of match it. But yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah, it was very handy having that. I don't know if I'd have been able to do it without it, but there was a lot of, you know, like you do one take, then you'd listen to it. You do one take, then you'd listen to it, and then you'd listen back to you, and then you do a little bit again, and it was like, you know, but before you knew it, you've only done like a verse, and you're like 2 hours in.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
And were there some songs that were easier or more difficult than others to do?
Let Me Entertain You was an absolute, like, a mammoth job. I think it's just like that. I think is like the parts I obviously can only hear. I recorded like the whole song, but actually they like use bits of me and him, and there's like that's probably I don't know for sure, but I think that's one of those things where it's like a bit of an amalgamation of both of us.
Yeah,
and we had to like try and recreate this like live sort of sound, if it were, like, because obviously he's like singing into a microphone. He's jumping around the stage, going crazy. And like, if I'm in a studio with like a really nice microphone in a really controlled environment, it doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
So I had to jump around the studio. So I spent a lot of time, and it was absolutely knackering. Like, I think I spent about 3 or 4 hours just like jumping around singing.
Oh God.
And like, it's just, and then there's bits where he's like, I can just remember he like runs across the stage. And he's like, I can't remember the line, but it's like, anyway, it's the mic's moving around. You can see it, and obviously in the network, in the actual like sort of performance, if you watch on YouTube, the mic's like moving around, and you're like trying to get it. So I'm jumping up and down, like trying to make it sound the same.
Yeah.
But it just was like that was like one of the hardest songs to record, just because it was like it you know, you really had to like capture that kind of like live feeling, and that energy as well, like, whereas the others are probably a little bit more controlled. That one was just kind of like, and obviously you've seen at the end what happens.
That's an intense scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? You're like, I think I was sitting next to my mum when I was watching that bit, and she saw that time, she's like, oh my God. And, you know, it's like,
yeah, we weren't expecting that. It really gets you by surprise. I mean, it fits. Like, when you look back on it, you think, oh yeah, challenging his demons and everything. But yeah, you don't expect it, because it's the height of the film, isn't it? It's the pinnacle of where he gets to, and then suddenly, boom.
Yeah. And then it does escalate to that moment, doesn't it? And I think, like, I remember when I first kind of got those. So we would kind of, obviously, whenever I was recording, I'd have the screen in front of me, so I'd obviously know what was going on. I'd obviously like be matching to like the actions and stuff. And I always had 2 cameras on my mouth. So like, I think that was just, I mean, what WETA have done with this film, I do not know. Wow. I do not know how they've done it. Like, it still blows my mind to see what the footage was. And obviously everyone's seen the pictures of like Jonno in the sort of pajama suit.
Yeah.
To go to like this kind of ultra realistic like monkey on stage who looks like Robbie Williams. And yeah, it's just like this kind of I've lost the train of thought now, because I'm just thinking about this, how crazy that whole thing was.
So they were using kind of your lips to sync.
Yes. So they'd sync my lips to the obviously the monkey, and obviously the pronunciation of stuff. So yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah, and then obviously like the fight scene, and there's like Jonno in this studio in WETA in this pajama suit, and I'm like, how did that ever go to that, into like this crazy scene where it's like I don't. Did you see there's like confetti coming down at one point?
Oh, I haven't spotted that.
Oh, we'll have to watch that.
On the next time we watch it, you see there's like confetti coming down, and obviously that's all like CGI.
Yeah.
That's mad how they can do that, like how they can just kind of, we'll just put in confetti or something like that, and it looks ultra realistic. And obviously, like, the amount of work that would have gone into it. I think like the CGI was just
incredible,
unbelievable,
unbelievable. Honestly, like I think and how like there's that element of like it obviously there's real people in it and there's real things, and then there's obviously the CGI element. It's just like they've combined the two so seamlessly.
Yeah.
Which is, and like I said, my mind is blown. Like when I saw the footage, I was like, oh, how does that ever get to there? And then you're like, oh wow, it does. Like, and then you kind of see, I mean, I would have been shown like sort of snippets of me singing or something like that, or like as time went on and they kind of got closer to the end product, you'd kind of like be recording to like the monkey then, and you're just like, like I remember the first time I saw the monkey, and that was like, I think it was like Come Undone, and he's in the car, and like you're like, oh, that is just incredible, because like at one point it was just kind of like Jonno sitting there in a suit,
right?
And I don't know if you've seen his Instagram post of one of him doing the Come Undone scene. He's like got this steering wheel, like from a gaming steering wheel, and he's just kind of sitting there on this kind of like little chair in the studio. And then you're like, oh, and then you managed to put him then in a car as a monkey. You're like, wow. I could talk all day about like.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Amazing they are. Like, I mean, obviously everyone's amazing in the film, but it blows my mind because I just don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do it? Where do you start? I can't even draw a picture of a monkey. Let alone...
Neither can I. I guess because you saw all the different stages, as you say, because you were involved so early.
Yeah, you just kind of, obviously, like when I was involved, like the photography and obviously all the filming stuff had been done. And then, you just kind of like, that was when the kind of CGI work started, essentially, I guess, like the main sort of like how they used to like, I think like I heard Michael Gracie did an interview and he said like you used to get like a delivery on a Friday of like the sort of the CGI. And then it'd be like, that's like the best part of the week, because you're just like having a really hard week. And then you see this amazing CGI like stuff coming out of WETA, and you're like, we were like, me and my girlfriend were in Australia, and we were so close to being like, oh, we're going to go to New Zealand, because I just wanted to go to WETA. I wanted to go to WETA Studios and do a tour around there, because I'd just be like, I just wanted to know what it like, how they
do it.
Like, where do you start? Like, what do you do? But yeah, like they've been really great. I mean, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the articles, but they've actually done like quite a lot of like the stages of like the composition of like the monkey as well, and like how that works. And just incredible.
At what point were you told about the monkey? Like, from the moment you were on board?
No, so it's kind of like I can't really remember the first time. I mean, I remember them talking about it as if it was like I was like kind of I knew, and then I was like, okay. But like the first kind of footage I saw was obviously Jonno in like this kind of suit thing, and I was like, I didn't know what that was. I'd never seen that before. I think I had seen that because I saw the making of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, and then my agent was like, I don't know what that is, because that's the CGI suit. And like at this time I was like first recording session, and I was like kind of like, I'll just go with it, like I trust this process. Like, I mean, I know that it's Michael Gracie film, like, and then the kind of like I can't really remember the first time. It just kind of like seeped into the conversation one time. It's like, oh, when the monkey does this, and I'm like, the monkey does what? And then I remember like Simon Gleeson, who is the writer and the guy who I would worked with closely, through the whole recording process. He was on every session. He would like kind of like, I was just like, oh, okay, I see what you mean now. And then he explained like why not why he was a monkey, because I don't think it ever gets addressed, but like the idea that that's the way he sees himself. He's like a little less evolved than the others. So I was like, oh wow, I do get it. Like this makes total sense. And then we were recording at one point. I just completely forgot that there was a monkey involved. Like you just kind of like, it just comes so normal. And I think when you watch the film as well, like, which is amazing, like, you start off and it's like this cute little monkey, and then before you know it, you've forgotten. Like, I think I remember like the bit where he's at school, and for the first time, when Jonno starts comes in for the first time, and you're like, I've completely forgot his monkey. I completely forgot. And it's such a cool, an amazing creative choice that makes it stand up, like away from the rest of the biopics, because we all know that the biopic has been done, you know, many a times, and obviously it's been done really well many a times as well. So I think the creative choice of that was just amazing. Like what an amazing, amazing choice, which 100%. Was very bold. I would not have made that choice, but it has come off. And as you can see with the photo behind you, it just looks so seamlessly like Rob, but as a monkey. So
oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
So what song did you enjoy singing the most?
Okay. Oh, it's so hard. I mean, they all were like fun for different reasons. Mm-hmm. I really, really enjoyed, I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I think it was like I enjoyed the challenge of it, was Better Man. Mm-hmm. And that bit where he is on the ice and like really like being like, I'm going to have to like pull out the stops with my acting right now. And like, that was quite hard to record as well. Yeah. Because like you could, and obviously under the direction of Simon Gleeson, like it was obviously very clear what was happening in the moment. And like, for me, that was like the point where they really gave me like the creative license to kind of go and do not what I wanted with it, but like take the, a lot of the songs are like recreating Robbie in it. Mm-hmm. Whereas this point of the film, I was like, it's over to you. Like, this is like, obviously you're going to sound like Robbie doing it, but it's your, creative license to kind of go along. Obviously, like the great thing is that Jonno had already performed this in a motion capture suit. So it was like really just kind of like, I was inspired by his performance of that. And I took that and then was able to kind of like match it with the kind of vocals and the movements and stuff like that. But, that was like super, like, I was really grateful that I got to do that as well. I think at that point we had been recording for God knows how long and done many, many takes. And obviously it was very much like kind of like we were trying to do this kind of mammoth task of recreating like Robbie's voice. But then I got like the creative license to do that. And I had to like not remember how to act, but I was like, oh, well, now it's like, now I get the point where I can, like really kind of, I think that's such a poignant moment in the film as well. Like it's such a huge moment, and like it's like the lowest he feels in the entire film. And you're like it felt like the mood changed in the recording studio. Like a lot of it was quite like not joyful, but like like we would sing like Let Me Entertain You, or see like a rock song, would have it playing really loud, or you'd have like you'd be doing these big grand bits of singing and the choruses are like Come Undone, like really like that. But it was just so small, and it was just like so like it just felt like the mood kind of went down, and then we kind of like we got stuck into it. But that was probably my favorite thing to do in the entire like whole the whole sort of film. But then you got like songs like My Way, and I just was like the whole like how the film sort of actually builds up to that moment with his dad, and you're just like, I really enjoyed doing the My Way bit, just because it felt like, I don't know, I've always loved like the kind of when Robbie done all this sort of swing stuff, and I was like, when they put that in there, I was like, at the end, I didn't know they had it in there for a while, and they were like, oh, we're going to do My Way, and I was like, oh wow, okay. And I always have heard, I knew the version that Rob had done that obviously at the Royal Albert Hall, and and I remember thinking, oh, that's such an incredible version, because I just love like this swing when you're winning stuff. And just to finish the whole film at the end, I was like, oh, that was a really fun song to do as well. And that was like one of the easiest for me for some reason. Like it was the one where I could kind of relax a little bit on, just because I felt like, especially like, it just felt good. I think like I just enjoy sort of singing that style of music anyway. So it's kind of like, oh, I get to sort of sound like Robbie, but also sing this kind of music that I quite enjoy as well. So
right,
wow, and wow, Yeah, singing Better Man. Yeah, that was a very moving part of the film. Wasn't it? Goodness.
Yeah.
I reflect back on it now, and it feels as though there was like multiple endings in the film, because you get to Nebworth and you think, oh, okay, it's probably going to roll the credits at that point, and then no, it carries on, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more, and it's up and down and up, and wow,
it's like a emotion. It is really like an emotional roller coaster, because you get to that point and then it just like drops down. And I think, like, and hats off to him, and I've said it a few times, like, he's so open, like, to let people tell that story or that version of this story, like, not a lot of people would be willing to kind of put it on the line like that. I think, and like people have said it before, like a lot of the biopics are probably a little bit watered down, and like the lows aren't as low and the highs probably aren't as high. Whereas like these are just like, it's so honest as well. And like, like I think Robbie said himself, like, he is the bad guy in the film, really, isn't he? Like, he's not the best boyfriend, he's not the best bandmate, the best friend, etc. So like, to kind of lay it on the line, I felt like that was a big bit of the film Better Man, to do that sort of, I obviously had to do that justice. And like, I was kind of like, it was hard to do, actually, because I think, like, having known people affected by that sort of thing, to really like get into that space, I was like, oh, that did feel quite. I think we had a long break after I finished that,
right?
Which
was quite nice. But it was just like kind of like quite like a poignant moment of the film, and just like, like you said, like, you don't know, you almost like don't know when the film is gonna end in a good way. Like, you're like, oh, like, okay, and now we're on to the next bit, and now we're on to the next bit. But it is just like, and it sort of feels like it gets to that part of the film, and it's just like, it's just like song after song after song. For me, I was like you obviously, the first time I saw it in full, like the whole thing running without stopping, was at the premiere in London.
Yeah.
And then like, you're like, so actually, funny enough, I didn't know. I think I'd been told briefly like what the order of the songs were in the film, but obviously we didn't do them in that order.
Yeah.
So to watch it all play out and be like, it was like a surprise every time the next song come on. And like, it was like the Come Undone. Like, I didn't know where that was in the film. And then you'd be like, oh, now they're at Gary's house, I know what's coming.
Right.
But it's just like really interesting the way that they kind of, the songs were put in. And it's quite like, it's quite a shock to me as well. Like, when you see it play out in one, you're like, oh, wow, okay, I see how those songs sort of fit. Because I obviously knew the scenes of the songs, but that's all that we would kind of record. We record from the start to the finish of the song, and we'd obviously get on to the next one. There was no time for like, oh, let's just sit back and watch this film. We'd kind of just be like, right, let's go. We need to get it sorted. So yeah.
So you mentioned that you received from voice notes from Rob. Can you tell us why and what was in them? What was he helping you with on those?
It was just a couple of bits with like it was like Relight My Fire, because we didn't know there was a YouTube version on there, so we weren't as good detectives as that. I think we were, but I don't know if Michael was with Rob at the time, but they kind of was like, oh, can we just get like a voice recording just so we know how you would sing it? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the main idea. And I think actually one of the funniest ones I got. Now, do you remember the start of Something Beautiful scene with Guy
That's what I was wondering. The little rap bit.
Oh, yeah.
The rap.
Yeah. We were wondering about that.
So he sent you that as a voice note, did he?
Yeah, we had that as a voice note. Yeah. Excellent. So we had that as him, like, just a reference of him doing that. And I actually was like, you want me to rap in this film? I was like, and it was funny because I was like, I think when you do these sort of things, you just don't know. Like, there's obviously scenes that have been sort of like cut, or parts of it's been cut, so you don't know what is going to be in the final thing. So I just kind of thought, maybe it might not be in there, and then it just literally cuts to the start of the scene, and all I could hear is me rapping, and I'm like, this is embarrassing. This is really embarrassing. But I remember him sending the rap, and I was like, oh, I've not rapped. I don't do that sort of thing. And I guess like the whole premise of it is to kind of set up the rest of the scene. Yeah. But it's I don't know if that is a rap that Rob has written.
No, I've never heard that before. I don't think.
we've heard him rap quite a lot before.
Obviously,
he has a little bit of fun with rapping, because he sort of fancies himself as a bit of a rapper, doesn't he? He's played with it a little bit over the years. So I think it was a little bit of an Easter egg, partly as well, just a bit of a homage to the fact that he does like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And it did capture that kind of essence beforehand. He wasn't like giving anything away in terms of like, emotionally. To Guy Chambers at that point, he's just kind of like rapping to kind of, he's like the showman sort of thing. Yeah. And then obviously then sing Something Beautiful was obviously quite like
such a contrast. Yeah.
Isn't it? And but yeah, those were the kind of main things that I received from Rob, just as kind of like references, really, just to see how he would like pronounce different things or how he would sing things, because you never know. Like, I don't know, sometimes you just kind of like, I obviously have a general idea of like how he would sound, but it's just like, well, why wouldn't we ask him to, if he was happy to do it, provide, some voice notes. But like the voice notes are great. Like, I mean, they're just like wicked to kind of like, I think, to receive as well. And I remember receiving it, especially like the rap one. I was like, oh wow. And then and the Relight My Fire as well, because I feel like you said, like, it's not really, no one's really heard him sing that. And I think there's probably only a few people now that are obviously on YouTube now, but I thought, not many people have heard this Rob sing this actually. No. So I felt quite honoured to receive something like that. And he's obviously, I think at the time he was like on tour and stuff like that, so he's obviously like super, super busy, and he still is. I mean, I've never seen a man do so much press as he has. Like, he has carried this whole thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Whereas like obviously people have joined and kind of come in at certain times. He's pretty much, it's a biopic about him, so obviously he was going to do all the press, but like, he is really just kind of taking it to the next level. I don't know if you guys have seen him do that much press before, but that is like a mammoth.
No, never that much.
No, never that much. Because actually, he doesn't really like doing much. He doesn't like doing a lot of press. No. He'll always these days he'll pick the primetime shows, the big shows in the right countries, and he'll do what's needed. But this one, he's gone way above and beyond, including all the film festivals that they had to do. Yeah. Starting with Telluride. That was 6 months ago, wasn't it? They started all of that or more.
Yes. 4, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when they started with that. Even so, actually, funny enough, when he sent me some of those recordings, he was at Cannes Film Festival.
That was a long time ago.
And that was like 2023 July. I don't know. Is it like July time? Maybe, or it might be even later in the year. I don't know. But like he's been. I can't remember the last time he's probably had a good sort of couple of weeks off. He's been really going hard. And then obviously he's going on tour as well. So
yeah. Non-stop.
Well, he always told us, he talks about the different acts of his life, the first act, the second act, and he's in the third act now, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he said to us when we interviewed him, he said, you need to wait for the third act. There's a lot coming. And he turned to his manager, he said, isn't there, Michael? And he's like, yeah, there's a lot coming. And my goodness, was he ever right? So, and then he also said, Daddy goes to work. We were talking to him about his work ethic and everything. So I think he's really enjoying it. I think that's the other thing. And obviously the film explores that as well, the fact that he wasn't enjoying some of what he was doing before. And I think he famously says it's taken him, 48 years to work it out how to be happy. So I think he is happy doing it, but he must be exhausted at the same time.
Yeah, that's it. Because I think even like, I think he, imagine flying to Australia and then within the next kind of like, I remember flying to Australia and thinking I was jet lagged and I had to have a rest for about a week. Whereas he's like the next day performing at their New Year's Eve, which is like one of the biggest gigs in the country. Like, but it's mad, and like hats off to him as well. Like, and obviously promoting this film that is very, very raw and emotional as well. So it's not like he's not hiding anything in this. So wow.
Yeah. I mean, and how was attending the European premiere? Did you get to speak to many of the celebrities?
Yeah, you just. It's such a I've not been to a premiere before. That's the first ever premiere, so I had no idea. Right, so I messed up a little bit we went to the pub beforehand and I had a few beers. Now, obviously, we all know what happens when you have a few beers. When you sit there and want to watch a film, you can't sit there. Yeah, I kept needing the toilet. So that was my first mistake. But no, it was amazing. Like, honestly, it was, you know, I mean, you get there and you're like, it's just all like big signs, people taking pictures. I'm like, oh my God, I've never like been this. I'm not used to this environment. This is totally not me. Because you know, and also like, I think I'd been in the studio with 4 people.
Yeah.
So there, you know, at the max, there was probably about 6, but really 4 people. And, you know, 2 of them are online. And then, you know, you've got like Johnny, who was the engineer who engineered the whole thing at Dean Street Studios, and then me, and then obviously Owen, who was the vocal producer who coached me through the whole thing. And you never really realize what it's going to come to. You know, I obviously was just kind of like in the studio, and you never think about millions of people listening to you sing, or a million people watching this, or all the famous people that watch it at the premiere. So I remember sitting in the premiere thinking, oh, holy shit, like this is really going to happen soon. And yeah, it was just like, I mean, it was an amazing experience. Like, I got, you know, you get to sort of, I met like, it was great because I met loads of people on the film who obviously I wouldn't have met anyway, because like I said, there was only 4 of us. Yeah. So we, you know, I got to meet like Jonno for the first time, and we'd sort of spoken online a little bit, but not a lot. And then just like a couple of a few of the actors, and like also like the producers as well, some of the songs. So like people who had worked on like parts of the film. And even like since then, people have contacted me, like especially from like WETA and, you know, all the kind of like music department I've spoken to as well. It's like, oh, you got to hear me sing for 2 years and didn't know who I was, sort of thing. And now we get to connect. But yeah, it was an amazing time. And obviously, like, I got the best. I actually think watching the film was amazing, and I absolutely loved it. But we got to see Robbie perform at the after party, and like, you know, there wasn't like loads of people, and obviously it was a very like intimate venue, and got to see him, like, you know, I've been performing his songs for, you know, what, 6. Well, God knows how many months, sorry, but yeah, like, you know, and then got to see him like actually play them live.
Yeah,
was amazing actually. And then just like to see the showman that he is, like, he had everyone in the palm of his hand, and that is like, honestly, I was like so engrossed in the whole thing. I think the set was like an hour, and it felt like 10 minutes. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, people say like, what, you know, I think when you see someone at a festival, it's a bit different. You know, you see him on a big stage, but when you see him like on an intimate stage, and like, you know, the rapport he has with the crowd, and just like how witty he was, that was like one of the highlights actually.
Right.
But yeah, like the whole experience was like amazing. Actually, funny enough, there was like I don't know if you saw, there was like a small pen of people, like to the left hand side.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
my parents,
our friends were among a lot of those.
Yeah.
So your parents went?
My parents were one of the sort of how many, like, was it 18 to 16 people or something, I think. They were the ones who got there. So yeah, they were really excited. They queued up from, I think they must have been there from, most people were there from like 7 o'clock in the morning just to get the tickets, and then had to come back at 3. And that night was really cold, wasn't it?
Was.
Oh yes.
And like, you know, it was like the first night where it was like really, really, really cold.
Yeah.
So I didn't know when to go. So we were like, oh, we'll just stay in the pub for like as long as possible, and then we'll just kind of go in. But yeah, that was a great experience, except for the many, not many toilet breaks, but the few toilet breaks that I needed to take. That was an amateur mistake. I should have known. But
and I think your parents met Michael Gracie as well that morning.
Yeah, they did actually. Yeah, they met him whilst waiting, and my mum was like, I think he just kind of popped up while they were waiting for the sort of tickets to the premiere, like for the pen bit.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, just she was like, do you mind if we have a photo? And then I think my dad's or my mum went, oh, Adam Tucker is our son, and he said the nicest things to. I think my mum will probably have them tattooed on her at some point. But yeah, just like saying like how much like it was a pleasure to work with me and stuff like that. So they loved that. They loved to meet. They loved that they got the chance to meet him as well, and just say like, "Oh, we're his parents." They're like, he was like, "You must be so proud," and I was like, "Oh, he's such a nice guy." And I saw him at the after party, and I was like, "Oh, you didn't have to say all that amazing stuff to my parents, but thank you." I was like, my mum will remember that forever now. But yeah, that's going to be her core memory now. But yeah, it was just great because obviously like my family were there as well. I think like just to kind of be like, you know, it all come together to the end at the, you know, and I finally got to see it. And then like we all went to watch it on like Boxing Day, which was really nice when it obviously came out. So that was awesome.
And did you get to meet Rob, or have you had a chance to have a chat with him at any point about it?
No, so I've not actually had the chance to meet him, which is unfortunate. But I'm sure the time will come. I'll wait. So, but yeah, like I've got so many questions that I'd like to ask him, and he's probably got some questions he probably might want to ask me. But one question I would be like, so because obviously for me and him, it's my voice and his voice. I'm pretty sure we were probably the two people that would really know when we sing in the film, and like especially like songs like Let Me Entertain You, I'd love to be like, do you know what bit you sing and what I sing, sort of thing? And like, I'd love to hear what he has to say about like me singing, if you know what I mean. Like when he heard me sing, like, because, you know, when I hear myself, I'm like, oh, I know that sounds like me. But for obviously someone who doesn't know me or like, you know, hasn't heard me sing for years, they probably wouldn't know. Obviously, they won't know it's me.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what his reaction was, because we have spoken to his team quite a bit, like his manager and, you know, his team, like his general team. And, you know, they were telling us some amazing stories of like how they first heard these recordings, and they were like, oh, we have you used original recordings of him, or have you used it? And then like, you know, it's amazing what they had to say as well. And they're obviously so appreciative of it as well. And they're like, his team is so nice. I don't know if you've met many of them, but they are like, we know the nicest people.
Yeah.
You know, in which is great, because then you sort of feel like, you know, a part of it. And I met his band as well, like some of his band. I actually have some mutual friends with one of his band members, so we were kind of chatting away and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sure the time will come where we get to meet. He's a very busy man, so maybe I'll have to go see him at one of his gigs or something to meet him.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it'd be awesome to kind of, I think because I've spent so long pretending to be him, it would be nice to just have a chat with him at some point. But yeah.
I think you went to see him at Sandringham as well, because that's in Norfolk where you live.
Yeah, I live 15 minutes away from there, so we biked there. I don't remember biking home. I'll say that. But yeah, actually, I was fortunate enough to get guest tickets for that, guest list tickets for that. So we got to watch him, and yeah, like I took my mate along, who's like a really big Robbie Williams fan, Martin, and I've got like some funny videos of us like really drunk singing Angels at the end. Like that was amazing. But that was also like, that was literally the first time I'd ever seen him live as well. So that was like amazing to see. And yeah, just to kind of be around the corner from my house was great. And I think everyone had a bit of a tough time getting home in the car park. We did not. I think it took us about half an hour to get there because we biked really slowly. But then I think it only took us about 10 minutes to get home after that. So that was a really good night. And yeah, like, I mean, it was just so weird. Like when they announced it, I was literally like, I think I just started recording. They were like, "Oh, Robbie Williams is playing Sandringham." I'm like, "Robbie Williams playing in Sandringham?" I was like, I literally live like it's like literally like the next village down. There's a cycle path that goes all the way to Sandringham.
Okay.
And it was a great gig as well. It was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was a really, really good gig. And he also brought like Mark Owen out as well, which is great. I really enjoyed that bit as well. But yeah, I got to see, obviously we would recorded Land of a Thousand Dances just at that time. So he played Land of a Thousand Dances. I was like, oh my God, he's playing it. I know this song. So yeah, that was awesome.
Did he first start doing that in Vegas, or was it before?
Well, Vegas, but then obviously he sang it with Tom Jones at the Brits in 1998.
Yeah, so it's kind of a reprise of the Tom Jones performance. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
and that part in the film is just like, I mean, it's a whirlwind, isn't it? I think I can't remember how many shots it is. I think Owen told me how many shots it was. But it's like hundreds and hundreds of shots because it just cuts really quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And also like to know what he like was going on like in his own head whilst that was happening was like, I was like, wow, like I'd seen that performance before.
Yeah.
And then you could go watch it back now and the performance is totally, it feels like you're watching something completely different.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and how they recreated everything is amazing. And then you get that kind of like behind the scenes view that you wouldn't have got. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
And then you held a premiere in Norfolk for all your friends and family.
Well,
was that on Boxing Day or was it a different day?
No, that was on the 27th. So
Right.
on the 7th of December. So basically, my mum was like, we have to have a premiere. Like, she's like, we've got to have a premiere. I thought, oh yeah, we'll have like, the small cinema like screen, which is like what, 40, 50 people. And I was like, yeah, okay, you organize it, and I'll just like, let me know. I'll let you know some people that can come. And then she comes back the next day and she goes, oh, we've got the cinema, but we booked the big one. So we're going to have 150 people. I thought, 150 people? What? And you're calling it family and friends? I was like, I don't know 150 people. But turns out we do know 150 people. And I had 150 like family and friends talk. And obviously the amazing thing was this was like, except for my like close family, this is like the first time they'd watched the film.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was great, like to have them all like kind of like watch the film together. And then we like, it's actually funny because obviously my mum and my sister made, before the film started, they made like a video of me like as I was growing up, and all the videos of me like performing when I was like a child and in the school talent shows, and like they were talking over it, like, it was really funny. They and it was like such a nice moment as well. And I didn't know that was going to happen. So I was just sitting there waiting for the film to start. And this thing starts playing. I'm like, my mum and sister are on the screen with my dad talking about it. And then my brother's talking. I'm like, oh my God. But
this
yeah,
is your
it was,
life.
yeah, this is like my life. And then like, it was just so nice to have like everyone that I knew in the crowd. And then, we went and played, and then we had like a sort of little after party, and me and my band played some Robbie songs, which everyone really enjoyed as well. So that was quite fun.
Wow.
But yeah, just like a nice little sort of ending to it all, and for everyone to sort of see it, sort of thing. Kind of,
What a lovely memory to have. That's so nice. Considering you did this such a long time ago, didn't you? This is what I said to the actors recently. We forget the fact that you guys did this ages ago.
Yeah. And like, it was funny because you watch the film and then you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember doing that. Like there's a bit, when he walks off with the melon, when he's like, he gets kicked out of the van and he's like, ah! And I was like, I remember doing that. And I remember all the alternative versions that we done. Some of the alternative versions are very explicit, what he says. But we ended up going with just the R sound at the end. The others were quite Robbie as well.
Right.
But I remember like coming out of the studio after that session, and I think I went and had dinner with my girlfriend. I was like, "You'll never guess what I was singing in the studio." I will repeat it, but it had the C word and it had the F word, and I had it a lot of times. But it's funny, and I don't know if you've seen like, there's obviously like bits that have been cut out, but there's a bit as well where it's like I think Fraser might have mentioned, or you might see on his Instagram, there's a bit where they're singing about Port Vale, and they're like, it's part of the scene where they're
on the sign, by the motorway.
On the sign, and they've got the networking line. Anyway, there's like a little song that they sang with it. They didn't use it in the end, and that had some expletives in that we got to. I was like, oh my God, I might be swearing in a film. And then, actually, funny enough, when we did do this premiere, like we invited like my sort of my nan, and we invited like my my great aunt, and people like that. And I remember at one point I thought, oh my God. And I remember how much swearing there is in it, and like some of the things he says. And then right at the end, he goes, "Oh, F yourselves," and I'm like, "Oh, that's the last thing she remembers of the film." She turned around to me and she was like, "That was interesting, wasn't it?" And I was like, "Oh my God, bless you!" Like, we should have probably pre-warned you how much swearing there would be in it, but
we did.
That wasn't what to take you down to.
Oh yeah. We warned your mum, didn't we?
Yeah.
That there was a lot, and I warned my parents that there was quite a lot, and I was like, well, it couldn't be Robbie without it, because it's just, that's what they do. That's what he does.
That's it. And I think he's done like sort of a trigger warning for a lot of crowds, hasn't he? Prior to the screenings, rightly so, because I think some people will be like, I think Americans will be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, oh yes. Yeah.
That's really offensive. You're like, it is offensive, but in the UK and in Stoke, that's not offensive.
Exactly.
That's my problem. Like, I heard so much swearing in that film. I think I was coming out and I was like, sort of like talking like it, like I wasn't adopting it. But yeah, like it's it's so, well, that's so Robbie, and like that's so like, I think there's one bit where I think it's the Gallagher brothers, and it's like Noel when he says one line, and the line is just swearing. You're like, that's the most like Noel line you've ever heard. Like,
So the all important question: what is your favourite Robbie song? I know that's a really hard question, even for us.
That is a really hard question, because like you, my mind immediately would be like Angels or something like that. But like, I think that's like the obvious one. But I would say that's such a hard one. You know what? I'm gonna go rogue here, and it wasn't in the film. Which I was a little bit gutted about, but it did make sense that it wasn't in the film. But probably like Millennium.
Really?
I actually genuinely think like that is like, if you were to say like, oh, sing me a Robbie song, like the first song that would probably come to my mind would be Millennium. Yeah, I think I just love the chorus. And like, I don't know, it just feels like I love the anthemic feel of it.
Right.
I don't know, like for me, I obviously grew up with Robbie, and I always remember that song being like, you know, I remember being like 4 or 5 years old, or however I was when it came out, sitting on like a stool with the tape machine singing Millennium. So that kind of comes. Obviously, I didn't do full circle. I did get to do Robbie. I didn't get to do Millennium.
No.
But as they were kind of revealing like the songs of the film, you know, you get like a new one through that they'd send, and I was always waiting for Millennium, but then it kind of made sense that it wasn't. And I don't think it's actually one of his favorites either.
No, he doesn't like it really.
He doesn't really like it, and he's like, I think I heard him say something like, you know, the word millennium is basically like crowbarred in. I think, yeah, like pretty much. But I just love that song. What about you guys? I'd be interested to hear what your favorite songs are. I'll put the question at you.
It's hard. I think we probably answered it in one of our previous episodes.
Yeah,
sometimes it changes.
Yeah.
And because he sang so many different genres as well, it's kind of hard to pin it down. I mean, I quite like stuff that's on his Under the Radar albums, which probably a lot of people have never really even heard of. And there's a song on there called Raver, which I love. I mean, I love all the big ones, the hits, but there's something about that one I really like. Mm-hmm. So Raver, if you've never heard of that, go and listen to that.
I'll have to listen to that one.
Under the Radar,
Volume 1.
One, yes, yeah.
I like Come Undone as one of the singles, or Feel, but more off the beaten track.
Come Undone as well. Yeah.
The 90s from Rude Box.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Rude Box album. I do like that.
There's a bit of rapping in that, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually, Come Undone's probably like one of my, like, it's definitely a contender for me. I think, especially with like the film version as well, because you got to see it totally different. Even like songs like Something Beautiful and stuff like that. Like, obviously they've taken on like a different life now, and I think he even said that he was going to probably play that in a live set, which is great for fans, because it's now bringing out some new songs.
Exactly.
Well, they're not new songs, but they're obviously songs that he's not played before. So
we do want to hear them live.
Yeah.
And I hope that he does it in the version of the film as well. That'd be nice to hear, I think. Just I think because it's like quite a nice, like, you can kind of have that moment in the set when it kind of changes to like being a bit more acoustic and a bit more sort of like mellow or whatever. But yeah, that's a really great song as well, and like the lyrics in that as well, like I think the way that it's obviously sung and the arrangement of it, it sort of changes the lyrics. Obviously after the scene that comes before it makes total sense, like what's just happened. So yeah, I'd say and like some people, but yeah, Millennium. I would say Millennium, Come Undone, and maybe Something Beautiful.
Okay.
So that'll be in the next film at the Millennium, won't it? That'll be the next one, the better man.
And
we hope.
And I was just thinking as you were sort of going through your choices, practically all of his songs are biopic, you know. So we've been listening to them ever since you were listening to him more and Take That, but it wasn't his songs. So when he went solo, the songs are basically all about his life and his struggles and his challenges, and I think people can relate to them because of that. And he was such an honest, vulnerable writer, and always has been. They say write about what you know. He's definitely done that. So we were when we before the film came out, I was saying, well, it's going to be a really hard choice. Obviously, they're going to pick the bigger numbers, but it'll be a really hard choice picking because there's so many stories in his songs about different bits of his life that, they were spoiled for choice, really.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think any of the songs as well feel like they've sort of been like crowbarred in at all. Like they've all come at the right like moments, and they always get to that, you know, the point where, you know, words no longer suffice. You start singing. And they always feel like that, you know, I know obviously like the rock DJ is quite early on, but it just feels like you know, they get the record deal or something like that. And then and then straight into the rock DJ, it feels like quite, you know, they're like sort of celebrating. And they got obviously like, but yeah, none of the songs feel like, you know, they've gone, right, we're going to put this in here because this feels like it fits. And, you know, I feel like with I can't really remember too much about it now, but like the Queen one, it felt like they were kind of more performative songs, if that makes sense. So it's like, instead of like, these fit into the narrative of the film, and like the whole idea of like better man, and, you know, like the words mean so much more. And then, like Come Undone when he gets kicked out of the band, and then like Angels when his nan dies. It just all feels so right. Like it's like this. He's pretty much like Michael Grace has probably gone. Yep, this song. It's quite easy to sort of get them in, sort of thing, isn't it?
Oh my God. Feel, sung by Carter at the beginning, had me immediately. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be like this for the rest of the film. I could tell that. I had me straight away. That first viewing of it, goodness me. Yeah. That was powerful.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think that like, just like, it just made so much sense as well.
Yeah, fits.
And like, you know, it's amazing. I mean, even if I wasn't like part of it, or, you know, I've said it many times, like even if I weren't part of it, I absolutely loved it. Like it was just such an amazing, because I don't feel attached to it because I've done a lot of singing in it, but like other than that, like, you know, it's like Michael Grace's work, and I'm like, I'm just such in awe about it. And I remember like him coming into the studio and talking about these songs, and like, you know, he's like the reference to like the Baz Luhrmann Moulin Rouge sort of thing, where you kind of like be making these songs that people love, but in a different style. And I was just like, it makes so much sense. Like the more I kind of like listened to the recordings that they'd been doing, I was like, this is just going to be awesome. And obviously was so lucky enough to be part of it. Clearly just in the right place at the right time. But yeah, like what an experience to be part of something like that. And a film just like, I mean, I know you guys would say it as well, but I definitely think it's like one of the best biopics ever. Like I cannot think of anything that trumps it. Like really, I obviously love like the Bohemian Rhapsody, which I think is up there as well. But I just genuinely think this is so just like, even if you're not a Robbie Williams fan, like you've got to watch it. Like
100%.
You know, and like it's just the story. Like obviously, because Americans are going to be watching, like who's Robbie Williams? They're not going to be attached to this person,
no,
or know anything about his life. But when they come out, they'll be like, "Wow, that was a great film."
Yeah,
and I think that's the thing. Like people have been watching it, and they'll be like, you know, you got to go tell your friends. You know, your friends will go watch it, and then that film about Robbie Williams, you've got to go see it. And I've literally like I struggle to see a bad review. I struggle, and like obviously, you know, it's 98%, or it was at some point on the album was #1 in the downloads. So it speaks volumes, I think, like of how good the film is. So
yeah, it does.
Yeah,
definitely.
So tell us what's next for you.
Well, for me, I mean, first I actually have a delivery coming very soon of a #1 albums chart little trophy from the UK chart, official charts thing, because obviously it was #1 for a little while. So I've claimed my one.
Well done.
That's nice.
And I was like, oh, you never know when it's going to ever happen again. So I was like, oh, we'll take this opportunity to get one. So yeah, I've got like obviously the Better Man official soundtrack. In terms of me, well, as you probably have imagined, there's a lot of people wanting me to do some like Robbie stuff and would like to sing. I think a few cinemas have asked me if I can go along and do some performances before the film starts.
Right.
But I'm more than happy to do that because I just want people to go see it. So if there's an extra reason why someone should go see it.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, I'm a musician myself. So obviously, like, before all of this started and before, like, I was ever in this film or attached to it, I was writing my own music. So because I knew this film was coming out, I was like, I'm just going to hold off, like, all that music. So potentially, like, I'm going to ride this wave for a little while, I think, because people are now, like, as you've seen, have sort of started to discover who I am. Yes. And, like, my TikTok and Instagram are sort of slowly creeping up there. So I'm just going to hold out a bit and then just see where it takes me. Really, I might release some of my own music. I have written a few songs that they're not super Robbie Williams style, but they I think people like yourselves listen to it and be like, oh yeah, it does still sound like Robbie Williams quite naturally. But yeah, we'll see what's to come really. I mean, I'm open to, like, if Mick Hucknall wants to do a Simply Red biopic, I could potentially star in that one, or Ed Sheeran. I don't have to just be the voice of that one. Not that I sound anything like those guys, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I'm just kind of riding the wave and see what will happen, really. Because as I said, like, it was never the plan to be in a film. I wasn't like scouring the internet trying to find my next role. It just kind of fortunately just landed at my feet at the right time. And yeah, so long may that continue, and I'll just kind of like ride that wave, and I'll kind of take the opportunity to kind of do as much as I can. Probably going to sing a lot of Robbie songs between now and probably the next few months, I think. And like my Instagram and TikTok will be full of those. I think that's what people want to hear at the moment. So you got to give the people what they want. Tell
us how to find you on TikTok and Instagram so that our listeners can look you up.
Well, I have to remember my handles now. It's at the Adam Tucker on Instagram.
Yeah.
And on TikTok it is _Adam Tucker.
Okay.
And yeah, TikTok seems to be going a bit crazy at the moment. I've got a lot of people asking a lot of questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the link of this podcast and send it there, because then it's answered all the questions that they wanted to know. I feel like you're sort of answering the same question over and over again. So I was like, if you guys check out, like, there's a video of me just explaining, like, a lot of people obviously will comment and saying, why is Robbie not doing it? Why is Robbie not doing it? I was like, and then I used a snippet of that interview that he done with Sean in Australia. And I was like, this is why he doesn't do it all. So yeah, no, it's really, really great. And I think, like, also I've got to say, I think Robbie Williams fans are like the best fans. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. Like, genuinely, the reception from Robbie fans is like amazing. And like, they're all so kind. And so, like, because I think that was one of my biggest worries in the whole thing. Like, it was like, the average person who isn't a Robbie Williams fan will probably just be like, oh yeah, cool. But obviously it means so much more to, like, people like yourselves and like Robbie fans, like this film.
Yeah.
And it means that you guys get more gigs. It means you get more things. So I wanted to kind of make sure that, or I wanted people to kind of react. Obviously you always hope that people kind of, especially the fans, they enjoy your performances and they enjoy, like, what you've done. So I'm glad that people like yourselves are happy with the final result, especially the singing, because I think that's obviously just such a big part of the film as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's been I mean, it's been a bit of a wild journey so far, so it's amazing.
Well, we're definitely happy.
Absolutely.
Right.
Incredible performance, and just the songs are so emotional and so much part of the narrative, and you are embedded into that for history, as you said, and you've got a number one as well, so that's not bad.
Yeah, that's good going. Thank you, Robbie. So yeah, I had to have the help from Robbie Williams, but we got there in the end. The number one. I think a lot of people were like, my girlfriend was like, "Are you going to get one?" Because I don't know if you know, but you have to actually buy these awards.
Oh.
So you don't just get given them. Like, anyone would have to buy these awards. And I was like, let's just say they're a lot more than you probably think they will be. And I was like, there's only one chance, and you can't just have one if you want one. You just get a replica. So yeah, they like, you have to buy them. But I was like, there's no way I'm having one. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how many times are you going to be number one? Hopefully you are, but like at the same time, it's like, realistically now it's like there's so much competition. It's like, I'm gonna take that while I can, and I will, that'll be on the mantelpiece forever. I'll show my grandkids that.
Well,
do you have to like prove that you are part of the number one, or how do you actually even get it?
I like kind of like you just kind of email them, and then obviously like they'll see my name and they'll like put the two and two together. But I think I don't know if I have to send that ID across, but yeah, you have to. So it's like anyone associated with it. So it's like management, producers, anyone who's sung on it. So, and I spoke to Kaylee, who actually sings. She's the one. She sings as the Cole Appleton, and I was like, you gotta get one. You gotta get one. There's no we have to have one. I was like, I have to have it. Like, even if it's for a week or however long it stays at number one for, I'm like, I will be having one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. I mean, it's so cool. That was like the cherry on top, really, because obviously you do the film, I sing throughout the film, whatever, and like obviously that was a big chunk of work, and then you think, oh yeah, they're going to release a soundtrack at the end. So there's like this whole nother, I think that's how people have discovered me, actually, through the soundtrack, obviously because my name's on it.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, who's this Adam Tucker bloke? Who's this Adam Tucker bloke? So people obviously found out who I am, and it's been awesome. I think
I'd encourage everyone listening and watching to go and follow Adam.
Yeah.
And go and listen to him singing some other stuff, because you'll see how incredible he actually is beyond the Robbie world. And we're very intrigued to see what you do next. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting journey for you from this point onwards and upwards, I'm sure. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to come on. It's been really great chatting. And like, obviously a lot of interviews that I do are kind of like only like sort of like 5-10 minutes long. So it's nice to kind of get into the nitty gritty of it, and obviously speaking to like people who are really interested in like, obviously like the Robbie side as well. It's just like, it's great. And, I feel like I've learned stuff today, to be honest, about Robbie Williams. So I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
That's all right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Robbie Williams Rewind.